Hello everyone, welcome along to Live on Air this evening. With us Stuart McAdam, and we're going to be talking about social media and how you can use it to really good effect. So first thing I want to do is get Stuart to say a few words about himself.
Yeah, I'm Stuart McAdam. I'm 25 years old and I'm the founder of Cinema Addicts. So I've been quite fortunate to have some experience with a lot of the different platforms that we're going to be talking about tonight and the processes in which you can best engage them.
That's great. Thanks very much for that, Stuart. And we just had a little bit of interference there to start one of our live on air sessions, but never mind. Thanks for joining us. We know that we've got some people there in live chat, and you're welcome to add questions as we go along. The first thing I want to do is talk about the fact that we're doing a live on air as part of kiwiconnexion.nz, which is its own e-portfolio networking site. But we want to be able to increase our reach through Facebook and other social media. And Stuart, I wonder if you could tell us what kinds of social media might be available for small, very small social networking sites.
Well, David, it's absolutely massive, the amount of social networks out there, many of which people haven't heard about yet, which are slowly on the rise. The biggest one, which you obviously can't go past these days, is Facebook. It's 1.9 billion users. You've got YouTube, which has also just recently gotten 1 billion users. You've got Twitter with about 320 million users. Instagram, millions and millions of users as well. Pinterest, WhatsApp, Snapchat, the list just goes on and on.
So say something like Facebook, we've heard that it's mainly geared now around the somewhat older age group. I think they do a lot of marketing towards the 50+ age group, whereas when Facebook got going, it was very much a younger age group. So presumably different ages and stages are going to different sorts of social media?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you're finding that a lot of people who are on Instagram and Snapchat and those social media platforms tend to be from younger generations. Facebook actually was founded by Mark Zuckerberg for the intention of being a social network for people at that college age level. So whilst they've still got a large amount of people that are on Facebook at that age, it's also proving to be quite effective with the older generation because of its usability. It's far easier to understand and grasp than what some of the other social networks might be.
Well, what are some of those other social networks, Stuart? I know you're a member of LinkedIn and I'm a member of LinkedIn. That counts as one of the...
Yeah, LinkedIn's definitely big for people in the business community. It's a very effective tool which a lot of headhunters use to recruit people and also to share a lot of articles and insights about the latest trending news in different business industries, from technology to consulting to manufacturing to something like IT services and freelancing.
Yeah, I found LinkedIn a fantastic tool, and one of the groups I belong to is about how to do design, and it uses the industry network guru, rather, John Wesley, and who founded the Before and After magazine group. And so these are very, very powerful ways, and they're also incredibly social ways of learning. Social media can be very much about learning as well as putting things out there from yourself.
It definitely is, and it provides you with access to media platforms which previously you might not have heard about, that provide sort of news which comes up via algorithms into your social media feeds that you may not have seen previously but are of interest to you. I mean, I'll give you two examples. There is a website called RT, or Russia Today, which tends to be sort of quite right-leaning, and then you've got ones like the BBC News or CNN and MSNBC, which tend to be left-leaning. And so if you go and have a click on the article, suddenly you'll notice that because of the cookies from the tracking script, they've started, more of those stories start to appear on your news feed, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or anything else. And it's very, very fascinating because it opens you up to sort of a lot of new possibilities.
So social media has become a primary way of distributing news, as well as fake news. We might come back to that later. There are so many possibilities using social media that it can seem a little bit overwhelming. So for a very small micro size organization like Kiwi Connection, do we have to somehow define our audience and perhaps just concentrate on one or two social media platforms?
Well, it's almost a necessity, because it's, you know, saying you've got a wonder product as well. Like, I mean, for example, a smartphone. You're not going to be able to reach absolutely everyone with just one particular type of model. You're always going to have to produce different types to appeal to different people. And in the same way with social media, you need to be very specific about, first know the type of audience which you want to reach, and then figure out from there how exactly you're going to go about doing that through the content that you're creating, and also as well through the messaging that you're doing as well. Sometimes you find that on something like Facebook, a pixel ad with a talking sheep which wants to inform you about how to buy a new printer might be far more effective than saying, get this printer with all the latest features, because it's just that creativity which is really sort of reaching to it. And you've probably found with a lot of the videos you've been doing, it's often those sort of creative ones that are sort of got a little bit of zing and X factor have really resonated well with people.
Yeah, I had a fantastic comment on Facebook the other day. I thought I'd done a really good video, and this guy must have been trolling through, and he said, oh, you know, this was so boring that I switched off after 2 minutes. And he didn't realize that, to me, that was incredible that he actually watched for 2 minutes. Because the average YouTube view is sort of measured in not at YouTube, sorry, the average Facebook view might be measured in 3 seconds, 9 seconds, or something like that. And that brings me to the point that I think churches particularly have to somehow come to grips with social media in a way that maybe a lot of them haven't yet really understood. Would that be a fair comment?
It certainly would be. And a lot of churches, like particularly the mega churches in the United States and those sort of ministry platforms that have been able to reach a lot of people, have successfully utilized the power of social media to connect with people. I'll give you one example. William Lane Craig's website, reasonablefaith.org, which talks about sort of Christian apologetics and sort of debates with, you know, sort of atheists, Muslims, and people that think differently from Christians. He's been able to do an extraordinary job live streaming debates onto YouTube, onto Facebook, onto the other platforms which can handle that, and also giving live updates as well on some of these other channels. And it's really been able to reach an audience far bigger than what you could ever just do by filling up an auditorium.
Yeah, the auditorium event is over and done with, but social media videos have the ability to archive that particular kind of approach.
And it's definitely got a good community sense as well to it. If you have a look at these online platforms and online community groups, a lot of people really thrive off being a part of that, because they may be, you know, here in New Zealand, and all of a sudden there's someone that's coming in from Australia, the United Kingdom, Singapore, Hong Kong, and you've suddenly got this platform in which someone's, say, maybe delivering a sermon at a church, and you're able to maybe afterwards discuss it or put your commentary in on the live stream feed, which is quite extraordinary. And you see that a lot of news platforms as well are starting to do that now. We're saying we are live from, you know, so-and-so's presidential bid, or we were live at the latest unveiling of, you know, the new McLaren car, and it's just remarkable.
I think it is remarkable. I think it's one of the defining kind of changes that have occurred. The invention of things like Facebook was very definitely a watershed moment in the whole of the development of the web. But the ability for people to be able to interact more and more, even after the event has been streamed, I think is gives a power to the viewer that wasn't there before. And in this sense, I think social media is a very positive thing, not only for society, but for churches as well, because it helps to promote a degree of openness and dialogue that didn't exist in the past. When I began life as a preacher, way back in the beginning of the day, I'm not going to say when
dinosaurs run blue.
well, something like that. But the sermon was almost a kind of a sacred point in the service, and everyone was focused on what the preacher was saying, and you couldn't actually, in any way, shape, or form, feed back on what that sermon had been about until after the service of worship had concluded. And this in itself was a way of controlling, I think, and that's why a lot of people have difficulties with churches. You know, they talk about control and the power of the charismatic preacher and so on. But it's the ability of people to be able to challenge, to feedback, to offer their point of view. And not only is this encouraging, it allows a better final product, if you like, or a movement towards a better answer. Maybe in Christianity, we don't necessarily have the final answer, though sometimes we like to think we do. Stuart, how important is it from your perspective that a little provider like us concentrates on YouTube when you're in fact very much a sort of social marketeer on Facebook?
Well, I think it is an important thing because there's no, as I said earlier on, there's no one fixed social media solution for different niches. And obviously with what you're trying to achieve with Kiwi Connection and here on Live on There, it's very much a sort of discussion-based forum and a sort of informative type platform that can actually just engage people through the content and through talking and through dialoguing. And I think with a platform like YouTube, it's able to reach that wider audience because there are going to be people that want to know more about John Wesley's sort of sermon on, money. And that's something which, to me is one of the best things he's ever written about. It's going to talk to people that want to know more about sort of like movies and marketing, which is what we've talked about in the past. And it's also going to give people a greater understanding and awareness and an ability to engage with you in a way which a platform like Facebook doesn't. Facebook tends to be very centered towards a content interaction type approach, whereas I think with YouTube, it's the sort of audio visual type of dialoguing that really speaks to people.
Well, look, I'm really pleased you mentioned John Wesley's sermon on money. Just for those that don't know, there's a famous Methodist way of summarizing that sermon. Whether Wesley put it quite like this, I don't know, but it's something like earn as much as you can, save as much as you can, give as much as you can. And then that's got a fantastic multiplying effect on social good. I really do believe that. Stuart, I'm also thinking about the ordinary person who just uses Facebook to do their family stuff, share their photos, perhaps a little video. We got a lovely little video of one of our mokapuna, one of our grandchildren, singing a happy birthday to his auntie. And I don't think it'll actually make the X Factor or anything like that, but it was an important little family occasion that Facebook is perfect for providing. But I've got a lot of clergy colleagues in particular who would like to see some of their stuff more widely shared in Facebook. Any comments about that?
Yes, with that, you have to be able to create something which people are going to want to share, because if you look through, if you look at Facebook as in a digital sense, it effectively is its initial intention was to replace sort of traditional photo albums. You used to have the albums that you used to page through of family memories and stuff, and now you sort of got it towards a more digital sphere, and Facebook simply provided that answer. So for people that are looking to, get their stuff shared, you need to first think, what exactly can I do to start sharing it and get awareness and get people talking about it? And what are some of the creative ways and interactive ways in which that can be done? Maybe it could be seen as a competition, share this, and, you can go in the draw to win the latest copy of a particular book, a Westfield voucher. it's all about sort of thinking outside of the box. And when you start to think outside of the box, you begin to see that the sort of solutions to actually improving your scope of outreach are a heck of a lot better than just sort of going about the normal route in which you would do with people in your congregation.
Yeah, I think that you've kind of hit the nail on the head here. Facebook's invented to share photo albums, and it's moved to video, and there's the start of doing some creative things with making text look better on screen. But that's, I think, embryonic. You've really got to be using quite a specialist product like InDesign and knowing a bit more about the sort of technicalities of print production as well as for the web. But what I see Facebook being able to do for the average minister is that it provides the platform if they can find the right audience. Let me share a secret. When I first started going on Facebook, they said, well, if you put up about 10 posts on other people's stuff and then one of your own, that's a kind of acceptable formula for you know, not promoting your own work. My difficulty with that was that though I did that, still only maybe one person or no people actually liked the post at all. And it wasn't until, in fact, I met Stuart McAdam and we started talking about this, that he said, well, maybe because of the kind of specialist things that you want to do, you need to create your own Facebook pages. And it's out of the conversation with Stuart that we've got the 2 pages, Live on Air and Kiwi Connection. Kiwi Connection is a much bigger thing in its Mahara e-portfolio, but those are our 2 Facebook pages. So would you think that most people would, clergy I'm thinking, and lay preachers, would they benefit by creating a Facebook page for their sermons? Yes,
It would be absolutely huge, because you can draw out key talking points from the sermon that, you know, in a normal 10-15 minute sermon might go unnoticed by people. And that's something which definitely does get people talking. If you have put a contentious question out there and say, you know, like, I mean, for example, one thing one used a while ago was, does God exist? Now, that's the type of one which is definitely going to generate a good type of discussion, and people are going to come in from both sides of the argument and give their reasons as to why that is. And then if you have a link to, say, for example, your sermon about it, it's definitely going to get a very good response. And if it's got a good picture to go along with it too, then I think you've pretty much got what's known as clickbait. It's something which people are definitely going to want to click on for the very reason that it'll probably have a good engagement.
Well, again, I've got to acknowledge my debt to Stuart in helping me with this, because that particular little video I did on the existence of God was part of a series called The Naked Theologian Asks, and it was set out to be a series of 10 short videos, no more than about 120 seconds length, so that they would be able to be used on Facebook. But when it came to the marketing of these on Facebook and YouTube, it never occurred to me in my wildest dreams that I would want to market that video to the segment known as the atheists. And so it was Stuart that sort of pushed it. I'm not quite sure how he did it. He is the Facebook guru. But somehow this video ended up, and it got far more response from the atheist community than it did from the Christian community. And it was response to the idea that I was really looking for. So in a sense, we have to sometimes realize that there are people with gifts and talents in certain areas, and you may create content in your Sunday worship, and you may create content for sermons in other situations, but will you necessarily have the skills to market? Marketing is a whole, well, we have this debate all the time, Stuart. I say content is king, but you say
distribution is queen, and she wears the pants. and it's something too that, you know, you have to be prepared to experiment with as well. You know, the audience that you actually think might be most likely to engage with your content might not necessarily be the case, because I think particularly with those that are wanting to hear for example, a lay preacher with a sermon, you're more likely to get a good response out of people who come from the other side, and you're definitely going to learn a lot more as well. And it's the same with other sort of audiences. You need to be able to set up, 5, 6, sometimes 7 different audience types, and give each of them a go with the interests and tastes and preferences and age groups which they may fall into, and see which one responds the best, and then start running ads with that, and then keep on experimenting and readjusting in other spaces as well.
And this is where I've got to slow down and learn a huge amount, because I keep on wanting to output content. And content for me does rule the roost in terms of what I want to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be effective content until we pick up that marketing challenge. And I think so many little churches, and the vast majority of churches in New Zealand society, we're broadcasting from Auckland, New Zealand, and so many in our society and context have less than 50 members. And I think that's true even in a country like the United States. You've got a certain number of mega churches, but the last time I read a stat about this, 80% of American churches had fewer than 50 members. May have even been fewer than 30 members. I'm not 100% sure about that statistic. So there's really a big marketing issue, and Christians just don't think that their message somehow needs to be marketed. But in the way the world has structured itself, we definitely do need to market our
And I think they need to start talking about issues which people are really concerned about. If you have a look at the reasons why a lot of young people are leaving the church, and even sort of the older groups of people as well, it's never over rational decisions. People will never just wake up one day and say, oh, this just doesn't make sense, God can't exist. It's around the questions like, why does God let bad things happen to good people? The sort of the moral argument around suffering, objective moral values. Can a person be good without God, or is an action right because God commands it, or is it God right because he commands an action? Those kinds of questions, I think, really need to be discussed and marketed on social media platforms more and more, because those are like the big things too. And I think another big one as well is, what does God think of the LGBT community? And because that's something where a lot of Christians have done a very, very poor public relations job to communicating with the more secular audiences in the world. And it's something which needs to be addressed very, very soon, because if it isn't, then church attendance and church numbers will start to dwindle more and more.
Well, I think that's a really interesting comment. And there are also a variety of other ways in which churches become involved with social media around these very community orientated questions and the secular community. And one of them in New Zealand is called the Neighbourly website, which is, again, it's for free. It's a little sort of social media kind of thing. And churches can put notices on Neighbourly, and hopefully engage people in the community coming into the worship centre, not to be preached at, but to let's listen to what the community is saying. Because I think one of Stuart's basic tenets has been that young people need participation. If they're denied participation in the Sunday service, they are not going to engage with the church.
Well, it's something which has been proven throughout the history of, humanity, is that young people respond to discipline, young people respond to being given responsibility and trusted to make good decisions. And just to sort of go off a bit of a tangent of it, I've seen that at the partnership school, Vanguard Military School. And they've done a fantastic job taking in people that were problem students in other schools and saying to them, look, this is how you've got to act, this is how you've got to have your uniform, this is how you've got to behave, this is the fitness level you need to have. And they've got a pass rate which is, enviable the envy of most secondary schools throughout New Zealand. So in the same sort of way as well, in the church setting, you need to be able to engage the young people with these types of good questions and refer them to the social media channels of people like William Lane Craig, Ravi Zacharias, Alvin Plantinga, Richard Swinburne, Alistair McGrath, because you will start to see a really good response from them.
Look, I'm so glad that you've mentioned those names. Those are some of the absolute keynote theologians of the 21st century. Or they started in the 20th century. They're carrying on into the 21st. But they produce absolutely superb, in-depth theology. Stuart, I'd like to just change the focus a little bit now. Do you believe that there's a bit of a danger with social media and fake news?
Yes, and it's hard not to run past it, because there was an instance. I mean, I first started picking up on fake news several years ago when a hopeful politician known as Colin Craig attempted to sue a satirical news website because he thought the article published about him was an actual genuine one with quotes that he had made, wholly unaware that it was sort of just taking the mickey out of him. And with that sort of thing over time, though, is that because there's so many satirical websites like that, and there's so many tendencies for media to just sort of want to produce a quick story, they can often pick up stories which, you know, are completely fictitious, and you have to be very careful about the number of news sources which you have. And, you know, don't believe. I mean, my general advice is don't believe anything until, you know, newspapers or organizations with conflicting ideologies tend to start mentioning it, and then you should have start having a look at whether or not it is genuine.
I think that's a really important sort of lead and segue to what I want to make as our last comment for this live on air, and that's around what happens when you've got very genuine news. Like Stuart and I have been busy promoting a film called full-length documentary film called Warehouse, which is made by not Music Is My Life, Film Is My Life.
Life Is My Movie.
Life Is My Movie. Thank you for the correction. Stuart, tell us a little bit about Life Is My Movie and Warehouse.
Yeah, Life Is My Movie Entertainment. There's a company based in Burbank, California, and they make documentary films about issues and topics which have got wide appeal within the domestic or the American community and the wider world. So their most recent project, which is soon to be released, is called Warehouse, and it's about the two directors who go inside the world's largest refugee camp, the Dadaab refugee camp, to find the stories of people that have been not just working inside of there, but have been living inside of there, some of them their whole lives. And it explores some of the issues which the world is currently facing with refugees at the moment. How do you look after them? What is the solution? And I think what they began to see is that it goes so much further beyond just take in some refugees. There actually needs to be some real, I think, structural overhaul to the whole system at the moment. So it's going to be a very very dynamic, engaging film. They've done some very good films in the past, and this one is definitely set to be a good one as well. I've actually seen the first half an hour of it myself, and it's looking very impressive. So we're looking forward to sharing it with the world.
Also, one of the things that I've noticed with Warehouse was that you arranged for me to be able to interview Vincent Vittorio, who's one of the co-directors of the film, and I found that a fascinating experience, that this guy over in LA would give up some time, to talk to someone on the other side of the world about this film. Your belief is that things like documentary films have a real niche audience worldwide, but in New Zealand there's definitely a market for this kind of in-depth look through a full-length feature film.
And it's powerful as well. People, you won't remember the newspaper headline article in a month's time, or it's very unlikely, but if you watch a good film, be it action, be it horror, be it a documentary film, you're likely to remember it for a long time to come. and you'll definitely be out there recommending it to family, friends, and people that you know within your community. So it's definitely an exciting industry to be a part of, and one in which you can get messages which need to be heard across in a very powerful way.
Yeah, and I think we've also got a fantastic opportunity here in Auckland, because we've got a Methodist minister, Trinity Waiake, who, when he was, I think, the Secretary General for one of the big Sri Lankan communities, Methodist communities, he actually went and lived in Dadab for 3 or 4 months, 5 months, and so he is also available as a resource to back up what might be being talked about in the movie. We also created a series of zines for the movie, and these zines were a way of us getting young people involved in the, I guess, the actual movie, what it was about, etc. And they were able to distribute the zines as an invitation to other folk. And I'm just wondering if you've got any final comments you'd like to make about that, and we can just check out whether we've got any further questions that have come through.
It's very interesting because a lot of young people are often the ones that are starting to bring a lot of these topics up. You find with the younger generation, they're those types that are likely to be very very concerned about a lot of these things which are happening to refugees at the moment, and looking to give solutions to some of the things which are going on there. And and because, you know, being at that particular age where they may not have those commitments which people in other age groups have, they're able to actually go and help see and experience what it's like firsthand to be inside of a refugee camp. So I would say, you know, if there is a sort of audience that Life is My Movie is hoping to reach, it definitely is the young generation, and also that generation who may not know much about the whole refugee thing and sort of blow it off as just something which is too expensive and costly. Maybe it will open their eyes up to something else altogether.
Right, and I think that's a really positive thought to end on. And so my special thanks for Stuart coming in this evening. It's always very helpful. Between the two of us, we're crazy about creativity and making movies and doing publications and goodness knows what. So big thanks again, Stuart, and also thanks to our audience out there in YouTube land.
Pleasure.